Alright, we're finally ready to get the head on here. I was trying to figure out, since I'm by myself, how to do this. This thing's kind of heavy. I'm going to put some paint sticks here. I got this lined up. I'm just going to set it on the paint stick so I can give my fingers a chance to get under that ledge. And then make sure everything is positioned. Put a couple bolts in, 1 or 2 threads in, and then slide those out and lower the head gently. And again, just a reminder that this front right one is the water jacket. So I'm going to have to put some sealant on that one. And do the 4 corners. Make sure those are in. Again, this is these are ARP bolts. I couldn't find any that was like a mixed stud kit. My original have a mix of studs and the capped. These are all capped. I couldn't find anything else, any other sets like this. So this is all I could find. This is 1463603 Jeep 258, whatever. So, and I got this at Summit. I would also want to mention that it came with some of the assembly lube. So we'll put that a little bit on the threads and a little bit on the head. It comes with instructions and it says to do that. Flashlight in there. And saw this one fall. I know that one's good. Check this front side. Yeah, it looks like it's going in. Alright, I think that's it. So I can take out these paint sticks. Might put a couple others in there. Actually, they're different lengths. I wasn't even paying attention. I just want to get it lined up for right now. And I did wipe down both sides, both from the head side and the block side. Spent a little while rubbing down with acetone and alcohol. Made sure that both surfaces were super clean. It's a little disconcerting. These are the short ones. Yeah, I put all the long ones in. The long ones go in on the passenger side, or on the driver's side, sorry. The driver's side. The short ones go into the passenger side. Yeah, I'm not looking for this all to be. Now we're going to lift this up just a hair and get those out of there. everything's lined up. These should all be loose. I'm actually not going to torque all these down right now. I'm going to do about, oh, that's one of the longer ones. I'm going to do about 20 pounds somewhere in there just to hold the head on securely, because I want to use the head bolts, my old head bolts, when I go to hoist it into the Jeep. I'm just kind of paranoid about using some of these side bolt holes and reaming them out or doing whatever. I mean, everybody talks about doing it, but it just freaks me out a little bit. So when I pulled the engine out before, there were these, like I said, I had these on the driver's side, these studs, and I just left this in torqued, and I just put on my bracket for the hoist into these, and I moved two of these over to the driver or the passenger side and snugged them down with a spacer there, because again it's too long, so I just put a little spacer with some spacers in there, snugged it down just a little bit, and it popped right out with the hoist. It was super easy and everything was exactly aligned. I didn't have one chain longer than another. They were all four right here, 4 pivot points, and I felt like it was much sturdier and much easier to level out the motor pulling it out. So we're going to do the same thing, put it back in. Yeah, that's all in there. What I can also start doing now is I get the rocker arms in there. I'm just going to loosely put them in. And then I will torque everything down once I get it into the Jeep. I will torque it all down once I get it in there. But everything's all set at that point, and I still have the front quarter panel off. I figure it's going to be pretty easy just to sit on top here and go ahead and torque everything down, all the rocker arm bolts and everything else. I'm just going to hand tighten these for now. All right, we're ready to put the push rods in as well as the rockers. I've just sort of I've already put in the first and the second one, just sort of like laying it in there. Things are a little bit snug. I got a little bit of assembly lube, a little dollop on the top of each of the valves, and put a little oil on top of there as well. Make sure that when everything goes together, it's all properly lubed to first start up and break in. I've also already primed the oil pump. I pulled the distributor, and I actually used, it looks a little droopy right now, but you can kind of see all I did was, it worked. It was very effective. Again, did not want to use any kind of socket or anything connected together. I didn't want any chance whatsoever that a piece might fall off in the middle of doing it. So a one-piece screwdriver. And again, I just duct taped it to the front of my electric drill, and that worked out great. I saw a little bit of oil coming up out of these push rods here, and then I looked down in the lifters, and the lifters had a little bit of oil coming up out of them. So the oil pump seems to be working fine. The push rods are each going to get a little bit of assembly lube dolloped right on the ends there, because those are the contact points. And then also, so each of the rockers is going to get some assembly lube on the inside, right at those little lips there, right where the pivot point here rolls. And again, just to show the orientation, there's a little bit of a taper on that groove. I don't know if that matters much, but the small end, or the closer together end, goes towards the front. So it goes like this as opposed to like that. So it goes like this. At least that's how the originals were, because there's my original. And you can see, if I can get a good, kind of see that taper line right in the center there. So again, I mentioned this before during teardown, a good reason to keep all your other or old stuff, even if, like I did, took it to the machine shop, tell me you want everything back again. It can't hurt to have it just to reference just in case. Again, there's that bottom part, and that's how the rocker goes up and down. The push rod pushes over on this back end here. There's a little indentation perfectly for it, and a little hole so that the oil can come up through the push rod and go ahead and lube up this whole area. But for break-in and startup, since this is swiveling back and forth as the valve goes up and down, I'm going to put a little assembly lube right in there. So just put a little tiny bit right in each of those edges. I can't see in there real good, so I got my shop light here. I can kind of see down where the lifter is. Again, I'm just going to put a little bit of assembly lube right on the end here. This end, and that end, and drop that right in there. All right, all the push rods are in. Got a little assembly lube on each end. And I'm just going to go ahead and loose fit the rockers on top of there. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube right in there. Probably more than I need. But like right in there. I just need just a tiny bit in there. And I'll plop the rocker in there. Narrow side pointing forward. Just kind of want to get them a little bit snug there. All right. I'll worry about the zero lash when I get it in, zero lash and then a half turn past that when I get it into the Jeep. Previously I mentioned when I put on the head, these are just kind of hand tight, the head bolts, because I'm going to actually lift it up on the hoist from two of these. I'm going to remove this one and this one, just like when I removed the engine, and also this one and this one, and put the original studs in there so that I can screw in a bracket for the hoist in those four places, put that in the Jeep, take those out, put these ARPs back in there, torque these down, and which shouldn't be difficult. I have the full front quarter panel off. I can just stand still inside the Jeep right next to it, go ahead and torque all the head bolts down, and then I will do the zero lash plus half of a turn on the rockers as I go ahead and set those. Okay. Alright, they are all pretty much in. Again, I'm just going to snug them down with my hands. Just get it so the push rods don't come out of their spots while I'm transferring. And I'll go ahead and also probably prime the oil pump again when I get the engine back in and get everything all connected up before I put the valve cover on. And I forgot to mention, for anybody interested in the actual parts, there's the rocker arms. So I had 6 of these, ERK 5512, and that's at Engine Tech. And then the push rods were SBI, and the number there, whoops. And there's the 1901454. So that should have been all stock. Like I said, the machine shop ordered all these internal parts. So, and they seem to fit okay. Everything is nice and matching up and looks snug on the valve train. So that's the rockers and the push rods. The next step will be finishing up the front end. I got the fan pulley. I got the water pump pulley, as well as the fan that comes out here. And that is pretty much it. And then it goes on the hoist, and we'll go back into the Jeep.